Love has often been described as thunder in the heart, as a storm that sweeps people off their feet, or as fireworks that light up the sky. But what if love doesn't come with an explosion? What if it arrives so softly that you almost don't notice it at first? What if it begins not with words or a kiss, but with something so ordinary, so human, that you can almost overlook it? This story is about one such moment. It's a story about a smile. Not just any smile, but the smile. The smile that broke silence, that softened walls, that turned strangers into something far more than friends. When we look back at our lives, there are certain memories that shine brighter than the rest. Sometimes they're tied to big events, graduations, birthdays, farewells. But often, the most transformative memories are hidden in small, seemingly unremarkable moments. A smile across a crowded room. A laugh that feels like sunlight in the middle of rain. A quiet morning when someone's eyes say more than their lips ever could. These moments become our anchors. They remind us of who we were, of what we longed for, and of the love we dared to believe in. For the women in this story, love did not arrive suddenly. It unfolded gently, almost hesitantly, as though the universe itself was whispering, "Wait, just watch. This is the beginning." It began in a cafe, with nothing more dramatic than a pair of eyes meeting across the room. It deepened with walks in the rain, with shared silences that spoke louder than words. It became undeniable under city lights when truth was finally spoken. It was tested by fear, by conflict, by the weight of doubt, but each time, it returned to the same place, a smile. This story is called Her Smile Changed Everything because it truly did. That smile was more than a curve of lips or a fleeting expression. It was a lifeline. It carried warmth, safety, and the promise of something real. It was a smile that could steady shaking hands, calm racing thoughts, and remind someone of why love is worth fighting for. It was, in every way, the language of the heart. Perhaps you felt it too. The way one person's smile can disarm your defenses, can light up even the darkest day, can remind you that you're seen and understood without a single word being spoken. This story is for anyone who has ever known that feeling, anyone who has ever been changed by something as simple as another person's happiness. Because sometimes, love is not about the grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Sometimes, it's about the quiet, ordinary moments that end up being extraordinary. So, as you listen to this story unfold, through first glances, unspoken sparks, confessions, struggles, and the forever moments, remember this: love may not always come the way we expect. But when it arrives, it has the power to change everything. And often, it begins with a smile. The cafe was alive with its usual chaos, coffee machines hissing, the clink of ceramic cups meeting saucers, and a low buzz of conversations weaving into the hum of jazz from an old speaker. She sat at her usual table tucked into the corner, a book open in her hands. Yet her eyes weren't on the page. They drifted absently to the window where droplets from a morning drizzle blurred the view outside. She stirred her coffee once, twice, before letting the spoon rest. And then, unexpectedly, something shifted. Across the room, she noticed her. A woman seated by the far wall, hair tucked loosely behind one ear, fingers tracing absent-minded circles on her own cup as though lost in thought. Their eyes met, and in that fragile instant, the rest of the world seemed to step back. The conversation softened, the jazz faded, and even the rain outside felt muted. All that existed was that line of sight, two pairs of eyes holding each other as though they'd been waiting. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No lightning split the sky. No gasp escaped her lips. But there was something undeniable about it. Something she couldn't name yet. Her chest tightened, not in discomfort, but in recognition, as though her heart already understood what her mind hadn't caught up to. The stranger didn't look away. Instead, her eyes softened, and then, just barely, a smile touched her lips. That smile was brief, tentative, but it struck like sunlight cutting through fog. She blinked, lowered her gaze back to her book, though the words blurred uselessly. When she dared to glance back up, the woman was still there, still smiling in that quiet, unassuming way. It wasn't a smile meant for anyone else. It wasn't polite, wasn't forced. It was personal, like a secret offered freely. In that moment, her coffee cooled untouched. Her book might as well have been blank, and her corner table no longer felt like an island. She didn't move, didn't speak, but something invisible had shifted. The cafe was the same as it had always been, yet entirely different now. The stranger's smile lingered in her mind like a spark refusing to go out. She left the cafe that morning with her book closed, her thoughts restless, her heart unsteady. The memory of that glance clung to her like perfume, impossible to shake. She told herself it was nothing, just a passing moment between strangers. But deep down, she knew better. She knew that sometimes the smallest encounters carry the greatest weight. And though she had no words for it yet, she knew she would return. She knew she had been seen, and more importantly, she had smiled back. It was only a glance, only a smile. Yet something within her whispered, "This is the beginning." The rain had turned the city into a watercolor painting, streets shimmering under silver reflections of lamplight. They walked side by side, umbrellas forgotten, letting the drizzle cling to their hair and shoulders. It wasn't planned. It had started as a casual agreement to leave the cafe together, but the walk stretched on, neither wanting it to end. They spoke at first about ordinary things, the weather, favorite books, the strange charm of rainy evenings. But as minutes slipped by, their words slowed, and the silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was comfortable, like an old blanket. Every now and then, their shoulders brushed, and each touch sent a ripple neither wanted to acknowledge out loud. At one corner, she laughed, sudden, bright, unguarded. It startled her companion, but only for a heartbeat. Then she joined in, laughter spilling freely, bouncing off the wet pavement. And there it was again, the smile. It lingered long after the laughter faded, curving her lips with warmth that seemed to seep into the cool night air. That smile was not just an expression. It was a message. You're safe here. You're wanted. This moment matters. She felt it deeply, so much that her breath caught in her chest. She found herself memorizing the details, the way raindrops clung to her eyelashes, the way the corners of her lips curved with ease, the way her eyes seemed to shine even brighter under the streetlights. Neither spoke about it. Neither dared to name what was forming between them. But they both felt it, unspoken and undeniable. Their steps slowed as though stretching the walk could stretch the night itself. When their hands accidentally brushed, neither pulled away immediately. The spark was quiet, but it was there, burning, steady, impossible to ignore. By the time they parted, soaked and smiling, she realized her world had shifted again. She couldn't explain why her chest felt lighter, why her thoughts refused to settle, why she kept replaying that smile in her mind. She only knew that something had been ignited. Love, she thought, doesn't always announce itself with grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with the soft brush of a shoulder, the sound of laughter under rain, and a smile that stays with you long after you've said goodbye. The rooftop stretched wide, city lights flickering like stars scattered below. The air was cool, carrying the faint hum of traffic from far beneath. They had come here often, escaping the noise of the world to share quiet conversations and unspoken thoughts. But tonight, her chest carried a storm, one she could no longer keep contained. She glanced sideways, heart hammering, fingers twisting nervously. The words burned on her tongue, fragile and frightening. For weeks, she had carried them in silence, letting her smiles do the speaking. But tonight, the weight was too heavy. "I need to tell you something," she began, her voice trembling like glass. Her companion turned, curiosity in her eyes, waiting patiently. The world seemed to still. The lights blurred, the rooftop became smaller, and all that mattered was this moment. She swallowed hard. "I love you." The words tumbled out, uncertain yet undeniable. Her voice cracked, and her hands shook, but when she dared to look up, her lips curved into a trembling smile. It wasn't a smile of confidence, it was one of vulnerability, of hope laid bare. For one terrifying heartbeat, silence stretched between them. Fear flooded her chest. What if she had ruined everything? What if the bond they had carefully nurtured collapsed beneath the weight of her confession? But then, the answer came not in words, not immediately. Instead, it came in a smile. Gentle, radiant, certain. Her companion's eyes softened, and her lips curved in a smile that mirrored her own. A laugh bubbled between them, followed by tears neither tried to hide. "I love you too," she whispered at last. Relief washed over her in a tidal wave, carrying with it joy so overwhelming it almost hurt. She laughed, shaking her head at her own fear, at the weight she had carried needlessly. They leaned closer, hands finding each other, hearts beating in sync. The city lights flickered below, but the brightest light was between them. That night, the rooftop became more than a place. It became their beginning, the spot where truth was spoken, where love shed its disguise. It was the night when a trembling smile carried the courage of a heart laid bare, and when another smile answered with love, steady and sure. Love is beautiful, but it is not without its storms. Theirs came one night, uninvited, a clash of fear, doubt, and vulnerability. Words sharp as knives spilled, accusations born from insecurity rather than truth. The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. Tears blurred her vision, and for the first time, she wondered if love could be too fragile to survive. She turned away, ready to retreat into the safety of distance. It hurt too much to stay. But then, softly, hesitantly, she heard it. A quiet laugh, shaky, broken. She turned back, and there it was, a smile. Fragile, trembling, yet radiant in its defiance of pain. It wasn't the effortless smile she had first fallen for. It was smaller, touched with tears, but it carried something stronger, hope. It said, "I'm still here. I still choose you." That smile cut through her anger, dismantled her defenses, and reminded her of why they had begun. Slowly, breaths calmed, hands reached across the space, and the silence shifted from destructive to healing. They held each other, not with perfection but with truth. Love, she realized, is not the absence of conflict. It is the choice to stay, to smile even when it's hard, to remember the spark that started it all. And in that fragile smile, the turning point arrived. Years passed, not in grand leaps but in small, steady steps, shared meals, quiet evenings, whispered jokes only they understood. Love became routine, yet never ordinary. It was in the way they brewed coffee for each other, in the way their laughter filled the house, in the comfort of simply existing side by side. One morning, sunlight poured through the kitchen window, painting the table in gold. She sat with her coffee, watching her partner stir sugar into hers. It was ordinary, almost forgettable. But then, her partner looked up and smiled. That smile carried years within it. The first glance across the cafe, the laughter in the rain, the rooftop confession, the fragile reconciliation. Every moment they had lived, every struggle they had faced, every joy they had embraced, all of it was there in that smile. Her chest ached, not with pain, but with gratitude. She realized, in that ordinary moment, that this was extraordinary. That smile had once changed everything, and it continued to do so even now. It was not just love. It was forever. Stories often tell us that love is meant to be grand, loud, dazzling, unstoppable. We're taught to look for sparks that roar like fireworks, for gestures so big they take our breath away. But the truth is, most of the time, love doesn't live in the grand. It lives in the quiet. It lives in the everyday. It lives in a smile. For these two women, their love didn't begin with a declaration or a sudden rush. It began with a glance in a cafe, a moment so small that anyone else might have missed it. But that glance carried a smile, and that smile carried a universe. It was the first thread in a tapestry that would be woven over years, one filled with laughter in the rain, trembling confessions under city lights, fragile reconciliations through storms, and golden mornings painted with sunlight. Their story is a reminder that love is not defined by perfection. They argued, they doubted, they stumbled, and yet they always returned to that one thing, her smile. That smile was more than an expression. It was an anchor. It was a promise. It was a doorway back to love when everything else felt unsteady. And in choosing to smile, even when it was hard, they were choosing each other. Think about it. How many of us have been changed by something as simple as someone else's smile? A stranger's smile that softened our day. A loved one's smile that reassured us in silence. A partner's smile that told us, "I'm still here," even when the world feels heavy. Smiles are often dismissed as small, but in reality, they are powerful. They are bridges. They are lifelines. They are the heart's way of speaking when words are too heavy. This story, her smile changed everything, is not just about these two women. It is about all of us. About the way love finds us in moments we least expect. About the courage it takes to be vulnerable. About the strength it takes to stay, to forgive, to choose love again and again. And about the quiet magic of a smile that holds the power to change the course of a life. Years from now, when the cafe has closed, when the rain-soaked walks are only memories, when the rooftop has long been replaced by new buildings, one thing will still remain: her smile. Because that smile was never just about one moment. It was a thread tying together all their moments. It was the language of their love. So, if you take anything from their story, let it be this. Never underestimate the power of something small. Never overlook the quiet. Sometimes the simplest acts, like smiling, hold the most extraordinary truths. And sometimes, love doesn't need to shout. Sometimes, love only needs to smile. Because real love, true love, always finds a way to smile back.